Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am the Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, on an emergency, a very special Rockies Insider podcast. After 14 years in the majors with the Colorado Rockies, Charlie Blackmon is calling it a career, and I couldn't be more overjoyed to have Skyler Timmins from Purple Row, amongst many other places. You know him for all his great Rockies takes and Rockies fandom. Skyler, how you doing today?
Doing good, Patrick. It's a somber day, and glad it worked out. We were going to talk about Charlie Blackmon, regardless, is what you had told me, and worked out. We have some substance to talk about now.
For the last month, I've been thinking every time I come into the ballpark, this was going to be the day that Charlie officially said, you know what? I'm going to call it a career at the end of 2024. And it continued to happen. And we never got that announcement. So today, the final off day before the final 6 games of the season, going back home to Coors Field against the Cardinals in Dodgers, Charlie on Instagram makes the announcement, and Ace in our chat on YouTube. I'm depressed now. Yeah, it hasn't hit me totally yet, but it is certainly something that is going to get emotional. I can't even imagine the final game of the season on September 29th against the Dodgers when they play his walk-up music and everyone just stops, give him that standing ovation. I haven't fully gone through that yet. I don't want to. I want to go through all of these steps and these phases
Mm-hmm.
because the next week is going to it's both going to fly by and feel like a lifetime all at once.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in that where I don't know if it's not going to hit me until maybe even that first at even opening day 2025. Maybe not spring training, but once it hits and whoever leads off that game, and you look at that roster and see Charlie Blackmon's not on it, I think that's when it'll hit me the most. Like, man, he really is gone, which it's sad. It's hard to be really sad when, yeah, he's been here for 14 years, but I'm glad that he's going to get this final week at Coors Field, especially that they get to finish the season at home, gives fans a chance to get out there and say goodbye, and give him that love he deserves that he's gotten for 14 years, but really share that with him this final week is going to be special.
Charlie Blackmon, one of the greatest leadoff hitters in the entire history of the sport, most obviously one of the greatest Rockies of all time. And he'll forever be the link between Hall of Famer Todd Helton and any possible future Hall of Famers, like maybe an Ezekiel Tovar. He announces his retirement on his Instagram and says, quote, as a kid, you play the game because you love it, like nothing else matters. I still play the game that way, but I don't feel like a kid anymore. My perspective has changed. I've been blessed to call the city of Denver and the Colorado Rockies my baseball home for the entirety of my career. I am grateful for the support of this organization, my teammates, and most of all, Rockies fans. It is with a thankful heart and a career's worth of memories that I choose a new path. Today, I'm a ball player looking over the fence into uncertainty. What is behind me? I am grateful. My cup runs over. I have been blessed more than any man should expect. I was afforded this opportunity by my parents and sister who supported my passion and have always been there. My wife, Ashley, has continued to support my dream and worked so hard to give our kids the same opportunities I received. But most importantly, I have been saved by grace, and divine intervention has tilted the scales in my direction. I don't know what is on the other side of the fence, but I take solace in knowing one thing remains constant. Although names and faces will change, the game will continue to be played. I'll hop over that fence, pickle the beast, and embrace the next phase of my life. I kind of was getting choked up there a little bit reading that. We all probably read it on our phone at some point, but to read those words out loud, how great, how eloquent they were. And it's true for every single ball player. But when a special player like Charlie Blackmon comes along, both the offensive, at times defensively, especially when he was a center fielder, and then just what he has done off the field and what he has meant to Rockies fans, this really hits hard.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned that it's a very eloquent thing, and I think that's a part of Charlie Blackmon. No, sometimes we didn't get to see a whole lot of. He's a really stoic guy on the field. We kind of know him as kind of the goofy weirdo fisherman guy. He's got the big beard, the mullet, a countryman, but behind all that is a really intellectual guy, a really eloquent guy, and we can see that in his announcement and that sentimental side that we see of him that, oh, while he didn't always outwardly show it on the field, we knew Charlie Blackmon loved the Colorado Rockies. He loved the fans and he loved the city of Denver. And that goes a long way of why he was so beloved and why he's going to be so missed, because especially during this tumultuous era where we saw guys leave Denver, find success elsewhere, and they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. Go elsewhere. Charlie chose to stay and was adamant, like, no, I'm going to stay here. This is where I want to be. That goes a long way. And so that's what means the most to me, reading all of that, of what he's going to do next. It's you're seeing a guy who's been with us for 14 years. It's really sad, and it's nice to see him have those eloquent words, so elegant, and be able to say goodbye his way, which is really nice.
Some fans, of course, have thought, man, this is a rough way to go out with this season, as well as what happened in 2023. But you're right. Charlie chose to stay, both in signing that extension in 2018. Okay, that was the first phase, the first step that a lot of players do, at least saying, yes, I will lock myself up long-term to be a part of this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But then towards the end, I am going to probably want an escape hatch. And Charlie never took that. Charlie never wanted to do that. So that's, again, that's really a credible thing for this organization in recent times, when other players have done that. Bud Black saying to Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post, quote, I have been extremely fortunate to have managed Charlie Blackmon. I never had to worry about Charlie. His preparedness, focus, work, and desire to succeed and win never wavered. Charlie will be one of my favorites always. That's the other thing that Charlie Blackmon, that I think some of the hardcore fans do know, but the way he goes about preparing for each game, he's always one of the last guys that you'll see out on the grass stretching. He's almost like by himself because he's getting his body ready. Obviously, he's got to do that even more so at 38 years old. But there are still plenty of games in 2024 where Charlie will do something big, or maybe some of the young players will do something big. And we look into the corner of the clubhouse, say, I'd love to talk to Charlie, but he's still doing his post-game regimen because there is a game tomorrow. There's a game next week, next month, later on in the season. And he has shown that to all of the players. I think Brenton Doyle has been one that's been working out a lot with him, where we have to now start to wait for him just a tiny bit. But again, for good cause, because it's a long season, it's a marathon, and you have to really prepare early for having a 14-year career, which is a rarity in today's game.
Yeah. And his career got off to that weird start where when he gets called up, starts doing good in his limited playing time, like 2011 to 2013, he got stuck with that injury bug where he's doing something, rounding second on a Jonathan Herrera hit, I think in 2011. Oh, breaks his foot. And you're like, oh man. So he's got to wait. He's on a long rehab, and then he gets turf toe in the minors. And we got to wait around longer for him. Start moving on. Oh, Dexter Fowler's our main outfielder. But when he finally gets his time in the big leagues, near the later half of 2013 into 2014, and going on from everything, you really got to see how hard he plays the game, how seriously he takes it behind the facade of everything. Like, he's all business on that field. No, he takes his craft very seriously. He took that old school approach, I think, that a lot of us saw in the Todd Helton era and guys before then, of just kind of this nose grinder, a dirt bag in the best way possible, where he just is a grinder, takes the game very seriously, just pours his whole heart and soul into his craft. And then we saw it pay off, of the great years that he had from beginning with that 6 for 6 on opening day 2014. From there, we saw his work ethic and just everything pay off for him.
You saying that out loud makes me think that's where the Rockies get their ethos of these things will sort themselves out. Because you're right. Dexter Fowler was a guy there, and he was maybe going to be that outfielder of the future, and they traded him. And then Charlie has, a rough start, stumbling out of the starting blocks, if you will. And you could have made the case, I'm sure a lot of people did at the time, why don't we keep Corey Dickerson and trade a guy like Charlie Blackmon?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen. And Jeff Bridich does make a great call, great trade for acquiring Germán Marquez from the Tampa Bay Rays. But you're right. The start to his career, might not have been great, might not have been how he would have liked to have drawn it up. But he eventually starts to become a much better player. As you said, 2014, really when he breaks out. Charlie Blackmon, a 4-time All-Star 2014, and then 2017 through 2019, a 2-time Silver Slugger Award winner in 2016 and 17. In 2022, he was a finalist for the Designated Hitter Award in the NL. Also wins a batting title in 2017. The same year, he participates in the Home Run Derby and is at the top of the leaderboard for so many different categories. Obviously, number 2 in a lot of the counting stats behind Todd Helton, but he's number 1 with triples with 67, but number 2 behind the Hall of Famer Todd Helton with close to 1,800 hits. He'll probably be able to get there this weekend, just under 3,000 total bases, 333 doubles, and a little over 1,600 games played. So when you're looking at the history books, it's Todd Helton, it's Charlie Blackmon, and it's very fitting for 2 guys who played their entire career in Denver.
Yeah, and how fitting that in a year where we saw Todd Helton go into the Hall of Fame and he'll get the gold ring around his number, that then Charlie Blackmon, who pretty much became the next Todd Helton after Todd Helton, spent his whole career in Colorado, announces his retirement. Nice symmetry there in this 2024 season, which has been pretty disappointing for fans across the board and just the results on the field. But to be able to celebrate 2 of Rocky's greatest players who spent their homegrown players too. I think that's the big thing. Larry Walker fits into the Hall of Fame and everything, but he wasn't a homegrown player, where Charlie Blackmon really is that homegrown star that we got with Todd Helton.
I don't want to say there's a right way to play the game. There might be a best way to play the game because there are a lot of right ways of doing it. But as Nathan May points out in our chat here live on YouTube, he says, the way Charlie went about his business is how I will always remember him. Never took an at-bat off, ran out every ground ball, ultimate example to the young kids, which is one of the reasons why him coming back really the last few years really made sense for this young core of guys to say, well, we need somebody to look up to. We need there to be a father figure in the clubhouse. It's almost crazy to say that next year, maybe Ryan McMahon becomes that father figure and he's not even 30 yet, or he will be. So Nathan May pointing out again, there's not one right way to do it, but there are certainly best ways. And I think that is the best way to be a hard-nosed guy. And Charlie did that out in right field, a place that I think people don't give a ton of credit to, with all the different surfaces that are out there with the auxiliary scoreboard. And a lot of other ballparks too have that kind of difficult zone in right field with the wall. You have that in Camden Yards. In San Francisco, there's a lot of those different textures with the brick and then the padding. So it can get really wild. So Charlie, it's just wild. Favorite moments here from some of the folks coming in on the chat. Ace saying on his birthday in 2018, they're playing the Astros. Charlie, his first career walk-off homer. It's funny you mentioned that because that was actually one of my first games covering the Rockies. And I kind of forgot about that, though I did mention it recently. It was when who did the Rockies play recently? Oh, the Orioles. So the Orioles, when the Orioles were in town, there was a lot of orange jerseys in the ballpark. And it reminded me of that walk-off game against Houston, because after the game, Charlie had a great quip about, it was good. It was a good crowd. A lot of Broncos fans in attendance because of all of the orange Astros jerseys. So Ace, thank you for that memory. Also seeing favorite on-field moment, Charlie hitting a cycle in game 162. Yes, that was a wild one because everyone was already thinking about game 163, had to win it, feel like they locked it up early, and they're going to have to go to LA. And if they win that, there's going to be a wild card game in Chicago. And, oh, man, there's all this stuff going on. Meanwhile, Charlie's out there giving his best every single at-bat because no lead is safe at Coors Field, and he goes on. And that's actually the last cycle that the Rockies have hit. So that's a great memory to share.
Yeah, the cool thing with Chuck is 14 years. There's a ton of memories. We've already picked out a couple of those notable ones. For me, I think back to in 2020, it's just the second walk-off grand slam in Rockies history. Unfortunately, nobody's in the stands because it's the 60-game COVID season. But it was that long game against the Angels. I think there was some rain delays in there, or it was in the rain and all this stuff. So a super long game. And Chuck walks it off against the Angels. I remember that one. I was thinking about that one recently.
I have to say that. So I talked with Charlie about an article that never came to fruition at the end of last year about that game. Now, second of three. Ryan McMahon
Mhm.
doing it at the home opener this year, which is wild. And of course, the first one that ever happened was the Spilly Slam, where he
Mhm.
sprints around the bases and dives into home plate, surrounded by his teammates. A real emotional moment there. But I will remember that because I was at that game. I didn't go to a ton of the games during the pandemic because it just was a weird vibe. I probably end up going to about 2/3 of games over the course of a season. I'll probably have gone to like the final 15 or so games of this year, but I go to about maybe 2/3. And that was a year where maybe I went to 1/3. Everything was
Mhm.
safe up in the press box, but that was one of those games with, Shohei Ohtani on the bench. He wasn't Shohei Ohtani just yet, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
2021. And yeah, it was just a weird thing. They had a tent set up where usually Spilly or Kelsey Wingert Lynch is located kind of down the right field line, the first row of seats there. There was a tent for the auxiliary players on the taxi cab squad. And Charlie hits the home run. He rounds the bases and he does a little jump up and down. There's social distance.
Yeah,
They
I
just threw
remember
some
that.
gum at him,
I
a
remember
couple
that.
couple bottles of water. They all go into the dugout. And on a Saturday night, a beautiful night in early September, the streets are quiet in Denver.
Mhm.
And it was one of the eeriest things for one of the greatest endings to a game Coors Field had ever seen. You would know it because in the matter of seconds, it was as if it never happened because there was a
Yeah.
lot more important things going on. But for you, for me, for a lot of people, that was something that helped get us through a really hard time.
Yeah, no, that's what I remember back with a lot of these Rockies players and those players we hold on to, like Charlie Blackmon, is those memories that we cherish with them, watching them when we remember back and seeing people in the comments their favorite moments and mentioning just those little instances. There's the big ones, or there might be little ones that we have here and there. That's what makes these players so special and hard to see them say goodbye. Hard to say goodbye to them because it's part of our lives that we're also saying goodbye to. That we're kind of having to put in the past again instead of seeing new ones with the guys that we love to see. So it's a lot of fun memories with Charlie Blackmon.
Joe Traub texting me from the Albuquerque Isotopes, reminding everyone that Colorado Springs had a AAA club. They did go to Albuquerque at the time in May of 2011, hit a bomb in the middle of a 10-run ninth inning. So again, Albuquerque's always been Albuquerque. Colorado
Mhm.
Springs has always been Colorado Springs. So there are those amazing memories. Owner Dick Monfort, also chiming in with a press release from the Rockies saying, quote, "When Charlie told me of his plans to retire, I got a little emotional, as I'm sure many fans will when they see the news that one of the greatest Rockies of all time will no longer take the field. It's been an absolute privilege watching Charlie's career from start to finish here at Coors Field. Charlie's passion and dedication to the game of baseball, this organization, and our great fans was on display every single day, and I can't thank him enough for pouring his heart into every game and every at-bat over the course of his 14 years here. Charlie is a Rocky to his core, and although his playing days are over, he will continue to be a part of the team in a multitude of ways going forward. We look forward to celebrating Charlie throughout this weekend, and we wish Charlie and his family nothing but the best in the years ahead." So right in there is a little hint perhaps at what the future could hold for Charlie Blackmon going forward. Want to also talk about a little more about his resume. He reached 10 years of service time in June of 2022, joining Todd Helton as the only two players to reach that mark playing solely for the Rockies. I can recall at some point last year looking this up for some other teams, and Nick Ahmed was close to maybe reaching 10 years of service time with the Diamondbacks. Maybe he had, but now he can no longer say he did it just with the
Mhm.
Diamondbacks, having bounced around with a multitude of teams in the NL West now.
Yeah.
So it is a very special thing. And of course, Charlie made us all appreciate a certain English band from London known as the Outfield, thanks to their gold record, quote, "Your Love," aka "Josie's on a Vacation Far Away," aka, and I need your help with this, Skyler, along with everybody else listening to this, say it with me: "I don't want to lose your love tonight."
Tonight. Ding, ding, ding,
Ah,
ding, ding.
wow. Now that I'm getting chills now. That's how every game should end at Coors Field. The Yankees have New York, New York. I think
Mhm.
they play the Frank Sinatra version when they win, and then they
Mhm.
play the original version by Liza Minnelli when they lose. I think that's a thing. But play Your Love by the Outfield after every game, that needs to be a permanent part of the rotation for Charlie Blackmon. Who says no to that? Come on.
Yeah. Find a way to keep his spirit around. You know, that because that song's. Can you retire walk-up songs? I'm sure that would get retired too. Oh, who knows? But yeah, I like the idea.
The album came out in 1985 for the Outfield, but it became a hit in 1986, which is the same year Charlie Blackmon was born.
There you
Come
go.
on. That's incredible. I think the lead singer unfortunately has passed away. Otherwise, if you were like, fantasy booking what Sunday looks like, you're like, oh my God, the Outfield is like playing a small concert up in the rooftop. I mean, the living members could possibly come out. Maybe Charlie is the lead singer for an impromptu show. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
Well, the song lives on. Also, will always live on through his daughter, who they named Josie, and everything. So there you go.
That is pretty wild. Coincidence? I mean, can't be. No. Oh, no. I accidentally named my daughter Josie from that song. So this weekend, for anyone that is coming out for the Dodger series, promotions seem like they were maybe a little bit light. I think Saturday's supposed to be like some kind of Harry Potter giveaway, but that's a special package.
And go ahead. I did see they are going to give away Charlie Blackmon t-shirts on Saturday.
First 20,000 fans will get a special Charlie Blackmon t-shirt. And then on Sunday, pregame ceremony honoring Charlie in his 14-year Rockies career. That's going to begin at 12:40 and I don't know, 2:00. We'll see if they can get any better with starting these games after the ceremonies. Make it last forever. Why not? Who cares? I think there'll actually could be a lot of people that end up taking this game in, whether in attendance or not, because I know the Broncos have a game. It's like at 11 a.m. It's also in New York against the Jets. So by the time the game is over, people will probably be able to tune in a little bit, or at least listen to it on radio if they don't have, Rockies.tv. Or maybe that'll just encourage more people to go and try to, watch the game up at the rooftop or something like that, or go over to McGregor Square and honor Charlie, because that's really been a constant. After Nolan Arenado was traded ahead of the 2021 season, I think for a lot of fans, it was, is Charlie in right field? Okay. Or is he DH? Is he in the lineup? That's like this constant throughout generations. As I said, the link between Helton and Tovar now. And, that's no longer going to be that constant. And that is just so strange.
Yeah. It's going to be a weird, different era, because like you said, he's that connecting tissue between what felt like an old era of Rockies baseball and then the current Rockies era. Now it's going to be a whole new, different era without Charlie Blackmon, and who will step up to replace him as that leader? Is it Ryan McMahon? Do they magically heal Kris Bryant's back somehow and make him truly the $182 million man, and he gets that bionic jump, which would be pretty sweet? Who knows what happens next? And that's going to be it's a weird unknown now of what's next after Charlie Blackmon. Who fills those shoes as Mr. Rocky?
Very true. Very true. But Charlie will talk on Tuesday at the ballpark at 2 p.m. So make sure you are following at Rockies_insider at Patrick D. Lyons on social media for updates about that and that conversation. I don't know. Is he can be dressed in his Rockies uniform? Is he can be laid back? Is he wearing his fly fisherman gear? I do want to talk about some of the commercials that he loves wearing the fly fisherman gear, but we're talking about the end of the road here. We're talking about his career, his resume, and the question that naturally comes to mind that I think a lot of people are discussing right now in the Rockies world, and emotions are high. So of course there might be recency bias, if you will, if you want to even call it that. Probably not right, but I always like to try to look at things, not with purple colored glasses, and just have a little bit of balance to take things into consideration. But the big question is, do the Colorado Rockies retire the number 19? And in my book, they absolutely have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it helps that you've got guys like Larry Walker and Todd Helton lobbying for it too, thinking, yeah, he deserves to be up there, because he's in a rare camp. He's probably not going into the Hall of Fame. Drops off the ballot probably first go around if he's on there. So he probably doesn't go that far, but in Rockies lore, absolutely one of the best. He is deserving of having number 19 retired. Nobody else should ever wear that again. You know, he's deserving of that, of what he's meant to the franchise, where he sits statistically, the historical things he's done in a Rockies uniform, beyond just setting franchise records, but just MLB historical records he's set. Absolutely, it should be up there, and they shouldn't wait super long for it either. Like within a year or two, it needs to be done.
Todd Helton got his number retired in 2014, the year immediately after he retired. That worked out really well. And the Baseball Hall of Fame is a place where you have to acknowledge the history of baseball and say, hey, can we tell the history of baseball without this player? And, with the Rockies having been irrelevant for a lot of their franchise existence, you still need Larry Walker to tell the story of the Colorado Rockies. From when they started, at least Coors Field, the early days. I also think there could be a case made for an Andres Galarraga, especially looking forward 25 years from now. You don't know what the conversation is going to be, what's going to happen with all of those PED era players and steroid guys, and say, well, we have to have somebody represent the greatest first baseman of that generation. And Galarraga was right there. He might have been that tier underneath, but he was the top of that tier. And again, he was the first superstar of the Colorado Rockies, the first superstar for the expansion in the 1990s and wild card play, all of that. Larry Walker, the big signing in 1995, along with Bill Swift, helping the team become the quickest expansion club to make the postseason at that time. And then you've got a player like Todd Helton, who does maybe represent that PED era, guys who played the game the right way and didn't have those same connections like the Bonds and McGuire and Sosa, things of that nature. And 2017 and 2018 deserve some representation. And if not in the Hall of Fame, that's fine. But for the organization itself, Walker can represent the expansion in 1995 and the opening of Coors Field. Todd Helton can represent 2007 in Rocktober and just being Mr. Rocky. And then Charlie as the guy that represents the only time this franchise went to back-to-back postseasons in 2017 and 2018. It's fitting that 17 and 18 get represented by 19.
Yeah. No, he checks a lot of those boxes and fits onto that Mount Rushmore of Rockies that helped define the franchise's history and that have been marked by really good players that unfortunately have unfortunately saw their careers spent on times where the teams were not very good, but still it didn't knock them down, individuals, and were leaders. They pulled those teams along as much as they could. And I think Charlie probably got one of the best deals among the core. He was around in 2017 and 2018, some of the best Rockies teams. He is that poster child for those eras.
Definitely is. The poll over on Twitter at Patrick D. Lyons only been up a couple hours, over 500 votes. 85.9% say yes, retire number 19. 14.1% say no. As you mentioned, Todd Helton, for Todd Helton Day, said, yeah, I think 19 deserves to be alongside my number 17, Larry's number 33. I actually remembered before we went to air that in 2021, when Walker's number was getting retired, I love trying to find the different details of different things walking around the ballpark on a big day like that. I'll be doing that this weekend to try to notice things that are different. For Walker, if you look in the second deck in right field under all the tunnels, I think it spells out Colorado. Well, it said like Walker had like 33 Walker going across. They did that for Todd Helton. And I noticed like, oh, hey, look, they've got the area set up for Walker's plaque, but it was covered up. And I pointed it out to Charlie saying, hey, did you notice that out there? He said, oh, I totally didn't. And I said, do you think maybe number 19 will go up there someday? And, he was pretty modest. I don't know. That's not really in my hands. And at the beginning of last year, in January of 2023, in that Breakfast of Champions event, where Dick Monfort made a couple comments about how the team would play, we myself, Thomas Harding, Patrick Saunders, Manny Randall, we talked to him for about 45 minutes. And when we got done, actually it might have been in the conversation where it was on the record of like, are you going to retire number 19? And he sort of said, maybe I have to maybe ask around about that. before kind of realizing, I guess I probably don't need to ask around. This is really my choice. This is really my decision. It's my team. If I want to retire at 19, I can do that. So, I don't know if that's something that has come up, if that's been part of the conversation. I know Monfort, we don't see him a ton in the clubhouse. That is a positive thing you could say about him. He's not in the clubhouse meddling, getting involved in people, maybe making them feel uncomfortable that your boss is there. The boss's boss, right?
Yeah.
But he was in the clubhouse during the last homestand and talking with Charlie a little bit, and they were working out a time to meet privately to go have a conversation that we now learn is about his retirement. Is that one of those things that come back next year, come back to Denver in 2025, maybe in August? That always seems to be the right time where we retire number 19. I would think so. I don't think there's the same issues with Carlos Gonzalez where, all right, he did play parts of one season with Oakland, but then he did also leave in 2019, playing with Cleveland and the Cubs. Tulo, of course, getting traded. Charlie's record is clean. There's really no reason why number 19 should not get retired.
Yeah, and no, it could have been an instance for Dick Monfort where he didn't realize or comprehend, didn't want to acknowledge the fact that Charlie Blackmon's time as a Rocky was coming to an end, because Monfort is a big fan of his players, and so it probably was hard for him to fathom that possibility even a couple of years ago, or a year or so ago. But now that it's in, I think, those will be conversations they have in the off season, and it'll be something they circle on the calendar, like, we'll retire his number, because you just got to, of what he means to the organization and his loyalty. And we know how much this team loves loyalty. He was a guy who was loyal to them. And so it's the perfect way to just mesh that.
Yeah, well put. LeGixer giving you a shout out, Skyler, saying, never miss a Rockies insider or affected by altitude.
Hey,
that's it. We do fantastic work. We give momentum to people, Skyler. That's what we like to do here. We do like to do that. Now, you said probably not a Hall of Famer, and Charlie Blackmon is probably not a Hall of Famer. But if you really dig into the members of the Baseball Hall of Fame, more players get in via veteran committees than do on ballots. I think it's only like a little over 40% actually get voted in by the BBWAA, and then veterans committees, they will come along and say, we might have missed a couple guys, or, this player fell off a ballot. We might need to have a conversation a little bit more. I think we might have missed something. And I think Charlie falls into that category. That being said, I don't know that he ever makes the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It probably won't be through the BBWAA, but if he can even get 5%, that would put him in rarefied air, because it's only been Dale Murphy and then the two Hall of Famers, Larry Walker and Todd Helton, ever received 5% and got onto that second ballot. So a veterans committee, some of the stuff that they would have to look into, besides just, playing his entire career with one team, you got to think 2017, 103 RBI from the leadoff position, really brought about, this era of power hitting leadoff batters, where it became, if this guy is one of your best hitters, let's bat him earlier on in the lineup than having to wait. I think we can all remember when he started hitting cleanup a little bit in 2020. And you're like, okay, I guess that fits on paper, but it always just felt wrong when he wasn't hitting leadoff. Again, we said 4-time All-Star, not a huge number there, 2-time Silver Slugger, won a batting title, but he played his 1,500th career game last year in 2023, and he became only the 71st player in MLB history with 1,500 plus games, 300 plus doubles, 200 plus homers, 60 plus triples in a career, and only the 18th to do it with one team. The first since Derek Jeter, Hall of Famer, and the first in the National League since Billy Williams, Hall of Famer, from the Chicago Cubs in 1959 to 74. So when you break it down to the National League, that does put him in rarefied air. Again, does that single fact alone make him a Hall of Famer? No. But you need to look at the entire resume to say, is there something missing here? If you look from 2014 to 2023, he ranked 5th in the majors and 2nd in the National League with 1,557 hits. Over that span, he also ranked among MLB leaders in runs, 5th, games played, 9th, and batting average, 267. He was tied for 7th, and his 42 career leadoff home runs are the 10th most in Major League history. You start to hear those numbers and understand wow, Charlie Blackmon just wasn't a good Colorado Rocky. He was a very good baseball player, period.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's nice is that he's technically in the Hall of Fame just for some of the historical things he's done. So he was not necessarily in the the hall itself, but in the museum itself with all the cool things he did. And yeah, with the way voting goes today and a lot of looking at war and other such things, 20 career RB war per baseball reference. So not a whole lot in the grand scheme of Hall of Famers. But like you said, you can look at the historical things he did do and how much weight do you put on just the legacy he had on the game itself beyond that value. And yeah, I don't know, probably not on the ballot. Maybe the Veterans Committee will give him a good look. But if he doesn't make it in, that's totally fine to me too, because we know how special he was even for Colorado, which points all the more. Colorado needs their own Hall of Fame for the Rockies itself, their own team Hall of Fame, so guys can get their purple jackets and all that good stuff. But he has his place in history, in baseball history, I think, which is still really special, where he left his mark and his legacy on the game without necessarily having, a gold plaque there in Cooperstown.
Yeah, I think fanatics would love to start selling purple blazers for people to pretend that they're part of the Rockies Ring of Fame.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. So also somewhere in the chat by everyone, shout out to y'all doing it over on YouTube. There has to at least be some menu item named after Charlie Blackmon, right? Like maybe a
nice fish,
a blackened salmon, a Blackmon salmon, something like that.
Yeah, it feels like something fish related. I think would be for him a fish burger. I don't know.
Could you rename the Rocky Mountain oysters after him? No, that would just be that would be a bit cruel. Look, we're having fun here, and when you think of Charlie Blackmon, you think of fun. You think of the commercials. You also think of the Charlie Blackmon kid. How's he doing? Has somebody checked on him? It's Charlie Blackmon.
How old is he now?
So believe it or not, he is old enough to rent a car now. No, he was like, the kid was like 2 years old in 2017. I do like to joke once in a while, like, oh, he just finished college, or he just paid off his last student loan.
Yeah.
No, so the kid's probably like 9 or 10, but now, when he turns on the TV tonight and watches the news, which no one does, but let's say he does, he's going to go, it's Charlie Blackmon. What are they saying? Oh, it's Charlie Blackmon. And
it's so sad.
It is. We're all that kid right now going, it's Charlie Blackmon. Oh no. What are they saying about him? He's retiring. It's so sad. All right, so the commercials, my favorite one, and it's a more recent one. Charlie, I think arguably did more and better UC Health commercials than he did ones with the Rockies, like Secret Fishing Spot, where you zoomed in on him wearing all his fishing gear, and you continue to zoom out. He's in his happy place. And then you realize that he's, in the batter's eye in center field. The fountains go off and he spits out the water because he's sitting underneath the fountains and somebody hit a home run. That one I think is probably my favorite Charlie Blackmon commercial.
Yeah, because you and I both love the era of Rockies commercials from back in the day. They don't do them anymore, but the UC Health ones with Charlie Blackmon were about as close as we could get. But I remember back, there's one with Jason Giambi acting as a Jedi Master.
Ooh.
And so it's just clips of Giambi in the clubhouse, just random things. He's making lightsaber sounds with the bat while he's swinging it around, or he's clipping his toenails, like shedding some wisdom to the youngsters. But there's a quick clip of Charlie Blackmon sitting there in the video room, studying the computer. Giambi comes up behind him and kind of just rambles about something, about talking like Yoda. And then he leaves, and Charlie just kind of gives him this look and nods his head, and he goes, "Wait, what?" He's super confused. And that little bit of that commercial always sticks with me, where Charlie's just sitting there, wait, what?
And I don't think he didn't have the beard yet. He had like mutton chops. He kind of had like big sideburns. He was still figuring his look out. That's another great thing that I imagine if you go out on social media, you're going to see all those pictures of baby Chuck before he had a beard and just looked like a kid. This also is one of my favorite ones too. Ace saying in the chat, when Chuck is sneaking around in the vents of the clubhouse, and then eventually he pops out of a grate in the dugout from like under the bench and
Mhm.
grabs his mitt and goes. Like those are all great ones. And then
Mhm.
the memes too. There's a ton of memes. I think of the finger waving one. You know, he's got the
Mhm.
foam finger waving number one. That one's great. That one's not going away soon. And then I don't know if this is more of a meme or just a clip from a commercial, but where he's putting the eye black on, and
Mhm.
then there's like 5 hands that put the eye
Mhm.
black, fix his cap, put the shades on. Those are great.
He slides over the couch and smoothly slides over on the couch, picks up a game controller and starts playing something. That's always a good one. Or the memes from fans. You know me, I love Rockies memes and stuff. The nightmare fuel of somebody that photoshopped his beard into tacos still lives rent free in my mind of how horrendous that was. But it must be really good because it's still stuck with me.
And didn't you say there was another beard related Charlie Blackmon commercial?
Yeah, I think it was like in the one of the last years they did commercials where it's Charlie's nightmare and he's going around and everybody just has fake beards on. And then he's looking around and they're like getting hair everywhere and stuff. And he wakes up because it freaks him out. And it's a really dumb commercial. I just remember at the end, he goes up to DJ LeMahieu and grabs his face and he says, "Don't you ever grow a beard. Your beautiful face, like don't ever grow one." That's about the only other one I really remember of Charlie.
Once in a while, as pointed out here in the chat again on YouTube, Arenado and Charlie as the stepbrothers. They'll be reunited. Maybe they're take that photo again this week. Like that's wild. Maybe it's a little bit fitting too that Arenado comes back here
Hmm.
in the final week. I don't think there's any former Rockies on the Dodgers anywhere, unless I'm mistaken. But again, that's a nice and neat little bookend for Nolan to come back on that and to be able to get his immediate reaction and his take on
Hmm.
Tuesday at the ballpark of what Charlie meant and what he represents and how for so many guys that came through the Rockies, whether if it was during that fanless season in 2020 or it was just a cup of coffee, like you knew Charlie Blackmon, you knew where his locker was in the corner of the clubhouse, and he was the captain of the team. That was the one thing that I wish that the Rockies could have done with Charlie and started. You don't necessarily have to do it for every team, every season, but if there would have been a C on Charlie's jersey to represent the
Hmm.
captain that we knew he was and he's always been, for quite some time, but that would have been a nice little touch to have the captain's C there.
Yeah, especially because he grew into that role and accepted that he needed to be a little more vocal and be a leader for the young guys, especially these last couple of years. That natural evolution for him, where he realized there's something greater than myself. I can't just hold on to my own knowledge and everything. I can share that and be a leader for these guys. I can step up. That natural progression for him. And so, yeah, would have been nice to have that recognition for him. We all knew what he was, but even just putting a label on it or something would have been nice.
Also seeing in the chat, it's being asked, and I think Skyler, you wrote an article where you discussed a lot of those commercials, right, over on Purple Row, I believe.
Yeah, that was one of my first articles when I first started back in 2021. Yeah, I think the Rockies have a playlist on their YouTube channel itself of all those old commercials. I don't know where the UC Health ones are. Probably just find those on there as well on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, you can go just look up Rockies commercials on YouTube, and the official Rockies page should have playlists with a lot of them going back to 90s commercials with the Blake Street Bombers.
And Charlie's a trailblazer in a way, and I didn't get a chance to look it up because this has been such a it's not even a part of his career or his resume, but it's a unique thing that I thought maybe would become something much bigger. I believe he's still the only, but he certainly was the first player under the new CBA to sign a sponsorship or to be sponsored by a gambling company.
Hmm.
I think he's still the only player to do that. And again, it's something that hardly gets discussed. I think I follow him on social media, but I don't see every single post to know if he's still putting stuff out there. But that was an interesting thing of like, okay, I'm towards the end of my career. Let me do this thing. We have this opportunity. Maybe some of the younger guys can benefit from that. So we'll kind of wait and see how much trailblazing that actually ends up, becoming. And Skyler, I'd be remiss if in discussing Charlie and his career and this decision for his retirement, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the angle of what if.
Mm-hmm.
If Skyler, if Kris Bryant were not on this team, would Charlie Blackmon be coming back for his 15th season in 2025? It's a reality that we don't live in right now, and certainly when he signed his $182 million deal ahead of the 2022 season, we didn't know that 3 years in he would still yet to play 162 games. But with still 4 years remaining on his deal, and being that guy that they're hoping is going to be able to recover and be somewhat of a fraction of himself. But as the DH, you say, well, we don't have room for another DH. So Charlie, you might not really fit on this roster going forward. It's a major what if. I don't know how much you've thought about that or how much that popped into your head today when Charlie made that announcement. What if Kris Bryant was on this roster? Would Charlie have come back for his 15th season in 2025?
I'm not sure. I think it goes to what Charlie Blackmon maybe thought of that possibility of continuing to play, because I'm sure he could maybe find a job somewhere else, kind of like Joey Votto did in the minors with the Blue Jays, but his career kind of petered out. But looking at where Charlie Blackmon was in his career, he's 38 years old, so he's not exactly a spring chicken. He's been around for 14 years, and we've seen his production. His body and his performance just isn't what it used to be. There's been that decline where it's okay. It's not terrible. No, it's much like Todd Helton in the later years of his career, where it's not eye-popping numbers. He'll still give you a good at-bat, good plate approach, but he's just not the damage threat that he was back in the day in his prime. So I feel like either way, regardless of if Kris Bryant was here or not, I'm not sure if I think this year would have been the end of it, especially when we saw that extension last year. It's like, yeah, this is probably the big thank you, one final contract, Chuck's last ride, and then he's going to call it quits at the end of the 2024 season. So I think it's apart from whatever the deal is with Kris Bryant, whether he was here or not. I think Chuck was going to, we just knew it was a matter of time when Chuck said goodbye.
I sort of wondered the same thing when he re-signed for $13 million, and you saw a lot of other DHs, Andrew McCutchen getting almost half that. That if maybe part of the math for Charlie, and for the ownership is saying, well, we're going to profit from this and celebrating you towards the end of the season and all of those other things. So we'll just pay you now to make sure that you don't go off somewhere else. And and you kind of maybe utilize that leverage despite probably not wanting to go anywhere else. It was something that was out there. So let's go ahead. We kind of had a couple extra bucks to burn, so to speak, on the payroll. So we'll go ahead and pay you $13 million. So it's still a what if that is kind of moot, because that's not the reality that we live in, that Kris Bryant maybe isn't on the roster and Charlie comes back. So that's that. The final question I guess that we have to answer now, Skyler, is what's next for Charlie Blackmon? What does he do in retirement? Stephen Rice of the Fresno Grizzlies saying, is it a coaching career or is it maybe a broadcasting career? Or it also could be option C. He just goes away to do nothing. But as Dick Monfort did say in the press release, he is going to continue to be a part of the organization, and he will, quote, continue to be a part of this team in a multitude of ways going forward. How do you look into that? What do you see? What's in Skyler's crystal ball for Charlie Blackmon in 2025 and beyond?
I think it's just one of those nice jobs, kind of like Todd Helton or Clint Hurdle, Scott Oberg, just kind of that traveling coach, that guy that can come around, be a special advisor in the office, front office, stick around, help the players, kind of as a mentor, move around. That's where I could see him move around the system to help minor leaguers, being as the traveling guy, so he can still have ample time to spend with his family and, spend time with his young kids and everything. And then he can still take time, a couple weekends, couple of weeks out of the year, throughout the year, and go to the different affiliates. I think that's where he could be best served, is continue to teach the young guys, Or who knows? Maybe the extreme, I don't think is likely, but they slot him as a hitting coach or something at the big league level. But who knows?
So if Charlie Blackmon's not coming back next year, does that mean Bud Black has to, or is it going to be a total clean house? Right? I don't know. I from some of the rumblings that I've heard, the likelihood of Buddy coming back next year is probably more than it was a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
When not to say that, hey, going something like 16 and 18, whatever it was, since August 16th, right, when Drew Romo comes up and they turn it over to the youth, like that has maybe sort of changed their mind entirely. But handling the youth as well as he has and the success they've had could have something to do. But that would just make this too much, almost, right? Blackmon and Bud Black in the same year saying goodbye. That's radical, and we know the Rockies aren't radical in that way.
Yeah, no, it just adds on a lot of with the Rockies of the unknown. They have a lot of decisions they got to make this offseason with certain players that they have in the system or on the roster, all kinds of stuff, their coaching staff. And so at least Charlie Blackmon then, takes one question away from them of, okay, he's retiring. We don't have to worry about him going to play for somebody else. So we know that's retiring. We can now transition over here and see what else we can do with some other things. But yeah, a lot of questions for this purple team of ours.
Charlie is an outside the box thinker, and I think he could do really well in a role in the front office. Maybe not day to day. He does have two young kids, Josie and Wyatt. Spilly saying on Twitter, like, hey, go be a dad, have fun, be a great husband, be a great father. He already is, but now he can devote a lot more time to that. And so, from a distance, he might be able to kind of, as you said, maybe be a roving hitting coach, but also a special assistant to the GM to help think outside the box and say, hey, when we would go on the road, this, that, and the other happened. Now, can we really devote some energy and maybe some money and finances into fixing this problem or solving this other thing? So he's always been that kind of guy. And so maybe you want that mind assisting the team and a special assistant to the GM kind of role coming around. I think Charlie would be a very entertaining broadcaster. He has really good stories. He has this great dry wit. I think he would be incredibly entertaining. I think the other question that for a while I thought the answer was absolutely yes. And as I've gotten to know Charlie more and more, his persona, it really is who he is. It's not a persona that he's wearing, but he seemed to, I think, probably to a lot of people, maybe not, but he's a professional wrestler that happens to play baseball. He's not over the top, right? He doesn't say brother every other word, right? He's not juiced out of his mind. Like he doesn't check off all of the wrestler boxes, but it seems as if maybe he has this persona, and part of being Charlie Blackmon, Chuck Nasty, is the beard, is the mullet. And for a while, I almost thought, at least when I first got to know him, that as soon as he would retire, he would just go into anonymity, get rid of the beard. No one would really be able to recognize him anymore. And he could just live a normal life with his family. And again, now I sort of think, no, you know what? The answer is no. He will not be getting rid of his beard. Maybe the mullet, but I don't know that the beard is going to go away anytime soon. What do you think? Is he going to get a big old makeover in his post-playing career?
Who knows? I wonder how much his wife will have some push there. No, I think he'd keep the beard. The beard's fine. And no, I was describing this to folks over at Purple Row. The business in the front for his haircut looks pretty nice. It's that party in the back that I think he can go away with that. That can be retired too. No, we can do the number retirement and put the mullet up there as well.
Wow.
I don't know.
Could be getting a haircut in the middle of the speech, perhaps. And then we'll take some of that, put it on Brendan Rodgers' head. I mean, Brendan Rodgers is keeping the mullet alive. He's only got one more year before free agency. We need somebody else to pick it up. Ryan McMahon had like a little mini mullet going. That's not very noticeable, but he doesn't do the beard thing. So I don't know. Somebody's got to maybe keep that tradition going on somehow.
Yeah. Got to do something crazy there. Ezekiel Tovar with a mullet?
Maybe.
Brenton Doyle?
Look, I'll say this. I said it to my wife as a joke, and because it's kind of pointless, and I don't even think I'm going to go through with it. But for the next 6 days, men of Denver and Rockies fans across the world, don't shave for the next week in honor of Charlie Blackmon. No one will probably notice that it's for him, but you will know that you did that to honor him. So
Yeah. Yeah, because there's that line where Tulowitzki had that mullet for a little bit, and then Charlie eventually takes up that mantle of the mullet, or the moulet, as he called it once, because it's fancy and it's French. No, I think it was because of Tulo that I had a mullet, heavy quotes around it, loosely based mullet in my junior year of high school playing baseball, and I can testify to the magic of the mullet, and that helped Charlie Blackmon's career. It helped Troy Tulowitzki that one year. It helped me my junior year. So there's a lot of power to a mullet.
I would say I grew the beard my junior year playing baseball, but I've still just yet to grow a beard as an adult man. So
Yeah.
Charlie's got that in spades over both of us. Skyler, this has been a lot of fun. Is there anything we didn't cover? This is just bonus time now for Charlie Blackmon. Derek Jeter, he finished his career in, well, not the best way possible because the Yankees didn't win a World Series, but he did have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, walk-off base hit in his final game, or at least at Yankee Stadium. How is it this possibly get written up for Charlie Blackmon? Final 3 games are against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, I mean, that would be really interesting. Dodgers have already clinched a playoff spot. I think they're about, a game or 2 out from winning the NL West. So it might knock them out of having the number 1 seed in the National League. Not quite the same as just knocking out the Brewers from the postseason in 2019, which Sam Hilliard, amongst others, allowed the Rockies to do to Milwaukee. But, man, will he get the Helton treatment? Will he homer in his final game?
That would be really nice, to lead off the game, DH on that Sunday, and hits that leadoff home run.
Yeah, it's got to be a leadoff homer.
Way. That would be the perfect thing. I think that would encapsulate as him doing something as the leadoff hitter to start off the game, do something special for him.
A triple? How about you do a triple too, adding to his already franchise lead, and then at that point, just hit a double and a single.
There you go.
Final game as a big leaguer, hitting for the cycle. I'm pretty sure that's never been done.
Good, as I knocked down my bobblehead.
I don't think. Show everybody your bobblehead because you prepared for this.
His head just popped up too.
Oh no!
No, don't worry, Chuck. I will heal you. Yeah, it's the little X-wing pilot, Charlie Blackmon. I had a friend give it to me one summer while I was interning with the Owls, and we were living in his cousin or his aunt and uncle's house. They had one of these extras. He's like, "Hey, you want this?" And so he just took it from his aunt and uncle's house and gave it to me.
There we go. We didn't talk about all the great Charlie Blackmon merchandise, right? Wasn't there that like wool cap that was also a beard?
Yeah, or there's like a hat with a mullet on it.
Yeah,
or the mullet beard hat, something like that.
And there was a bobblehead. It might have been 2019, and I'm like, I would have guessed it would have never happened just because of the royalty fees that had to be paid. But it was a Charlie Blackmon bobblehead where you push the button and it plays Your Love. Am I making that up? Do you know about this?
Sounds like something, yeah, that they did do.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. I think that's a real thing.
Okay, all right. Well, they had 2 in the same year. I think they had the strikeout counter for Kyle Freeland, which was cool. You count his strikeouts. And they did go up to triple digits, believe it or not. And for the Charlie Blackmon one, yeah, you could push the button. I do remember that because they showed Buddy and they pushed the button. I was like, oh my God, it really plays the song. How much money could that have possibly cost for those rights?
Yeah. Wasn't there a Game of Thrones one for him too? Can't remember.
Probably.
Yep, there was a Game of Thrones one. Looks like there was a walk-up song bobblehead.
Wow. I'll give the Dodgers a little bit of credit because the Dodgers have a page with links from every single year, going back from like 2001 or 2000 of every bobblehead that they gave out. And I was like, that's a page that needs to happen. I don't know if you could make money off of that with the clicks from Rockies fans, but that needs to happen at some point. A catalog of every single Rockies bobblehead. And it is amazing how bobbleheads kind of are this thing that lets you know about a place and time. And you say, oh, Game of Thrones was a big deal. Look at this Charlie Blackmon bobblehead from 2016. Bobbleheads will tell you what was hip and happening at that point in time in the world.
Until it's that weird era where the gnome bobblehead giveaway. It was a weird one.
That was definitely a weird place and time. Man, yeah. Charlie Blackmon calls it a career. September 29th will be his final game this Sunday, 1:10 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Does his final at bat come against Shohei Ohtani? How about that? Because I've been saying that, you know what? Anything is possible with this Ohtani guy. And you don't think he wants to pitch in the regular season, return faster than anybody else from a UCL injury? And if it goes against Charlie Blackmon, come on, that would be great.
I wouldn't be surprised if Shohei takes the mound and he's pitching left-handed. Just, surprise, this whole time I've been ambidextrous and can throw perfectly left-handed.
And then Charlie ruins his day because we know he hits lefties.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there we go. We've got the script. We will send it into MLB, see if it gets approved. We'll see what happened. You heard it here first on the Rockies Insider. Skyler, man, this has been wonderful. Let folks know where they could find your work, where they can find you on social media, and maybe continue the conversation if there's something that we missed, or if you want to talk more with Skyler, his DMs are wide open in the best possible way.
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at sideline_crowd, and then find me over at purpleroad.com, writing usually on Wednesdays, the Wednesday rock piles and other things. And then you can find podcast Affected by Altitude under the Rocky Mountain Rooftop banner, which is over at Fans First Sports that I also write there. But you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube. It's Rocky Mountain Rooftop, where we have Affected by Altitude, our regular podcast, me and Evan Lang, and then Every Rocky Ever, where I do that with my brother. And now that Charlie Blackmon's retired, he will be eligible to be on Every Rocky Ever now for an episode, probably sooner rather than later at this point. So we'll
Scott, I have a bone to pick with you because I've never seen the official rules to qualify for Every Rockies Ever. And now you're telling me all of a sudden they have to be retired? That's one of the rules?
I think the way Dustin and I have come down to it, it's when we're sure there's no chance of them returning to the Rockies. So it's usually former players that aren't playing anymore. That's kind of what we've gone with. It's kind of loose.
It would be fun, what I'm about to say, in theory, but it also would mean things are going horribly for the Rockies in the future. But if Charlie Blackmon kept coming back like every 10 years, like Minnie Minoso, where if you look at his baseball reference page, you're like, wait, he had 3 at-bats when he was 58 years old. So that would be fun, but it's also like, why is this 52-year-old Charlie Blackmon coming back just to say that he played in like another decade? Yeah, that wouldn't be great.
He comes back as a pitcher. There we go. There's Charlie Blackmon's in to continuing his career in 10 years.
Going the Rick Ankiel way? The reverse Rick Ankiel, pretty much. The current Brett Phillips way. Man, this has been a lot of fun. At Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB on the socials, at Rockies_Insider. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat. So many of you can't run down the entire list, but you know who you are. Appreciate that. Keeping the show moving along, sharing your memories. Skyler, thank you for all the momentum you've given us here today. But that momentum, as we know, it's only as good as my next show. So, of course, I'll talk to you tomorrow.